know how I became familiar with you.
Okay.
Basically, I was seeing you from afar. I was seeing you on social media, and I was
Okay.
like, yo, that like a light skinned Stakkstone right there. Yo, I like his flow. You know what I'm saying, brother? Like like-minded people connect like that. So I
That's
like
a
your
fact.
energy, and I was really appreciating what you had to talk about. And I just connected with you and was like, we should do something, bro. Like-minded, try to spit some positive energy out there.
And that's what I'm all about. I done enough knuckleheads, shiggity out here. You know what I'm saying? It's time to redirect some energy and get some youth on the right page.
Yeah.
That's
So what I was going to talk to you about in the beginning, we kind of from the same era. I was going to DC in Maryland early in the stages of my life. I think I was 20 years old out there. I used to live in Annapolis, Maryland, and I was familiar with a lot of people that was out there, and they was calling it the DMV area, so the Virginia, the Maryland, and DC area. I was familiar with that triangle right there.
Yeah. Some folks rock with that. Some folks be like, nah, it's DC or nothing. So it depends on who you talking to, whether they put it all together. Me, I look at it differently. I'm like, it's strength and unity, strength in numbers. So
All right, so how you grew up out there, Phil? So what was you into back then in them days? And
listen,
when you came out the house.
I came out that. All right, okay. I grew up in an area of DC called Uptown, which is in Northwest Washington, DC. Some of the infamous places in Uptown, most notably Kennedy Street. If you ever heard a story about brothers going down into the police headquarters, shooting up some FBI and police officers or whatever, detectives, they were connected to the First and Kennedy Street crew, which was, I want to say, 10 blocks or so from where I used to be. I used to be on the 14th and Kennedy side. The house I grew up was a big old greenhouse on 14th and Madison, 2 blocks over from Kennedy. I grew up in the 70s. I came off the porch behind my uncle and them. My uncle and his family were heavy in the street at the time, whatever. And some notable old school hitters used to be in my basement back at the time when herb was called reefer, and they was putting the manila folders in the little manila folders. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he said reefer.
You hear me?
So you showing your age now.
I come down the basement. On one table would be big ass mounds of reefer. And
Yeah.
on another table would be some mounds of coke or whatever the case may be. I didn't know what it was then, but when I as a youngin, I was in a lot of mischievous stuff, throwing rocks at cars, throwing golf clubs through windshields of the buses. You know what I'm saying? Dumb stuff. But when I jumped off the porch, I originally jumped off the porch selling hammers. I had a connect that was tied. One of my partners was tied to somebody that was a wise guy, and he had to hook up on 9s, 45s, 38 specials, all kinds of little goodies or whatever. So at a point in time, I probably was intricate in getting a lot of hammers around about at a young age or whatever.
So I'm gonna tell you, when I first started going to DC, I'm gonna tell you the biggest culture shock for me when I was living in DC was go-go music.
Go-go music. I said,
yo, I'm telling you, the go-go music. I got familiar with Red Essence. I think Little Benny, Junkyard. I guess
Junkyard. Chuck Brown was out back then.
Chuck Brown was the king.
He was the king. That's a fact.
He was the king back then. And Red Essence and Little Benny.
Little Benny, yeah. God bless the dead. Little Benny was one of a kind with that voice and everything. And
they was really into that go-go back then. They used to have the go-go's. Well, I used to go in there thinking it's going to be like a
regular party.
Club. It'd be go-go all night. I'd be like, hold up, what's going on?
What's really going on? and what's funny, right? Because one of my best friends was from the Bronx, was from New York or whatever, right? So I got exposed to hip hop from my uncle and them, but really through him. So I used to break dance and all that, but in rap and all that. During the time we're in DC, it wasn't cool to really do that at first. So I went through that wave until, you know, certain people, certain heavyweights made it cool for people to start rapping and listening to rapping, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, it was how can I say? It was a nice little period. I went from DC to California, stayed in the Bay Area, and thus got color orientated, you know, out Cali or whatever. When I came back or whatever, came back in high school in DC or whatever, that's when I really jumped off the porch. And a lot of people knew me from the neighborhood. They knew I would throw my hands. They knew I would rumble or whatever the case may be. But during that time, would nobody put me on. Nobody was trying to put me on with nothing. And I'm like, I'm trying to get some paper, whatever, right? So I reached back out to Cali, and back then it was Copacetic was sending shit through the mail still.
Yeah,
They sent me what was called a 6 deuce, 62 grams. You know what I'm saying?
60 deuce
of some good old fish scale at that. And from that point, I was on and popping. They was like, how this year? I'm maybe 15, 16, something like that. They was like, how the hell he get that and how he get so much? Because back then they wasn't giving youngins that type of work or whatever. For the most part, unless you had really made your bones or whatever the case may be, or whatever. So from there, it was on and popping. I was out there.
Yeah, let me tell you. So when I first got to Maryland, man, the money was so
sweet,
lucrative. I never wanted to come back to New York, man. And not only was it lucrative, there was no violence around at that time where I was at. It wasn't any shootouts over turf. It was none of that. So I was like, yo, you can't go wrong where I'm at in Maryland. I was in a place called Annapolis. So I was like the capital of Maryland, and it was just a lot of money, man. And I didn't want to go back to Brooklyn. And when I did go back to Brooklyn, a lot of my friends would ask me to take them out there. I used to be like, nah, I ain't taking y'all. I would lie, say, yeah, I'm going to pick y'all up and just shoot back to Maryland and leave them, because I didn't want them bringing that Brooklyn culture down there. You know, messing up my flow of money, because it was peaceful down there. Them dudes from Maryland, they took a liking to me. I met some kingpins down there.
Yeah.
That really put me in and elevated my game when I was involved with that. Yeah.
The same thing with DC, right? It's a big stigma, like with New York dudes coming down to DC or whatever the case may be. And unfortunately, a lot of people lost their way or didn't make it back home. But there was a select few that came right, and they were welcomed with open arms, you know, no matter the area of DC, from uptown to southeast, you know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure it was kind of the same way with you. You had what they wanted. Your attitude probably was right. You know what I'm saying? You didn't come on some extra, like I'm taking everything over type of mentality.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Brooklyn guys, they were arrogant, right? So you know, you go out of town, you think they country or they soft because they sound different. But there's some gangsters I ran into down there in DC.
It ain't where you from.
Maryland, some
it ain't where you from. Is where you
not only gangsters. I ran into some killers, bro.
Yeah,
bona fide killers. So early in my days of being involved with street crime, I've learned that there's gangsters all over the United States. It's
big city, small town.
They're not only killers in New York, but they're killers in every major city in the United States. So let's
that's a fact.
Be clear of that, you know.
That's a fact, and it's a misconception too, because like even up top in New York and even in DC, one or two names really ring bells. And people think that they like took over the whole city, or they was the ones that had the whole city far as with the gunplay. When DC's only like 11 square miles,
right? Very small, and everybody know each other.
And there was a lot of hitters in DC, and let alone New York being with all the boroughs. You know how that is. You had hitters from every little project, every what I'm saying, little situation, same situation. Where you know Wayne got the notoriety and a couple other people, but it was a lot of hitters.
So did you know any of those hitters out there, like the Sean Branches, the Wayne Perrys?
I think I might have crossed paths with Sean maybe once or twice or whatever. But yeah. Wayne, yeah, definitely, because one of my homies used to put in work with Wayne and for Wayne at the time. And see, that's another thing, right? Wayne didn't put a lot of work in, but he had a lot of other people put in work, and it got attributed to his name.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whatever, and he laid down on all of it or whatever. But yeah, I was.
Let me ask you a question. Did you
sure.
spend any time locked away, or
The most time I've ever done is 8 months, and God is my witness. I'm blessed.
Was you in Lawton or something? Or
no, I ain't even make it to Lawton. I fought a body. I got charged with a body in '90. I went from back when DC was the murder capital.
The murder capital, city under siege.
You hear me? We talked about yeah. My man was actually on that too. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I went from no bond status. I was in North 1, which was the juvenile block at the time in DC jail. I went from no bond status, but because of other activities positive activities, because I used to rap and I used to do a lot of singing and a whole lot of other things with local cable and some other stuff. So I had people in influential places write letters to the judge to me or whatever. So I went from no bond status to personal recognizances, which was unheard of. Which was unheard of.
That's really unheard of.
They put me on what was called heightened supervision, but it wasn't no ankle monitor. They just called randomly after it was like 8:30. I was supposed to be in the house or whatever. But my hard-head ass was still out. I started working at the East Side nightclub, which at the time was the worst club in the city. It was even worse than the Black Hole or whatever the case may be. But I got acquitted of that. I went to trial. I got acquitted in December 28th, 1992, or whatever the case may be. So at 16, they charged me as an adult for coke beef. I had 250 grams in working 50s. When I got to court, there was like little over 100 grams.
You talking about the workers, the working 50s?
Working 50s, yeah. A lot
Remember that? Look, I'm from your era. We talk about workers, boy.
Working 50s, you hear me?
Well, the audience that don't know what a working 50 is, it means for $50, you can get like a big ass rock that you can break down and double up. About $250.
You hear me? Yes, sir. I had 250 grams in a big ass paper bag, getting my money right. But they thought I was 18 at the time because of my height, and I guess because who I was, I guess who they knew I used to hang around or whatever, right? So they caught me. I had some bullets in my pocket. They charged me with unregistered ammo. When we got to court, though, the dummies, they wrote down how much, I guess they weighed it and they wrote down what it was. By the time we got to court, it was like a little over 100 grams in like crumbs and shake or whatever. Judge, my lawyer got this shit thrown slam out or whatever. But when I caught the murder case, the caliber of a situation in that, the detectives from the other case, they brought them in to testify against me because the calibers was the same or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So it was weird because the only person that was with me doing the whole thing was my mother. And it was weird for the jury. It was weird for prosecution witnesses because at this time, like I said, I'm in the street. So during trial at lunchtime.
Yo, Phil, you got an echo. They saying you got an echo.
Am I still echoing?
I can hear you straight up, but the audience saying the echo was bad.
I'm gonna tap out and I'm gonna come back in right quick.
All right. Stay tuned for the second part. We're gonna tap back in, yo. We live on my YouTube. Smash that link and follow me on YouTube. We're doing a live stream on YouTube. Stream, y'all. You can go over there. Like and subscribe my YouTube page. You can follow me on Clubhouse as well. I be having Clubhouse as well.
Is that better? Is that better?
I can hear you. Is that better, audience?
Test the microphone. Check 1 2. What is this?
She said you still echoing. Big Billy 93. What up? Daddy
Big
Bill,
Billy. Salute. I don't know what's making it echo. I ain't got nothing else active.
All right, so back
doing my trial during lunchtime. I'm down in the cafeteria at DC Superior Court. You got the detectives that's from the other case sitting over here with other police officers. You got various jury because they didn't sequester the jury sitting over here. So they looking at me like this nigga's on trial for murder 1, not homicide, not manslaughter, murder 1.
Yo,
And I'm
do
sitting
it
there with my
carry the
mom.
death? Did they have the death penalty in DC?
Nah, not at that time. But I was facing. Come to find out, my lawyer said they were trying to give me multiple life sentences off the one body because dude was shot, dude was burnt up. Then they had the armed robbery. They had was a felony murder while armed in the course of an arson, felony murder while armed while course of an armed robbery, felony murder while armed, something and various other shit down to the gun charge or whatever the case may be. But they never had a gun. They never had. It was really a circumstantial case. But
So once you beat that case, what were you thinking after that? Like, did you continue to be into the streets, or was that a wake up call for you?
It was a wake up on one side, but then it kind of empowered me in another way because it gave me a false sense of some kind of untouchableness. Stupid. It was stupid. I was young. Like I said, I was charged at 17. I got acquitted when I was like 19. So I was still young. And I always kind of lived my life on the edge, kind of sort of. So certain things were like a thrill thing. But I got back in the streets. I got back. Well, I really didn't stop being in the streets while I was facing it. Like I said, I'm bouncing. I was a bouncer at Eastside at 17. I wasn't supposed to be in the club. I'm bouncing down there, connecting with various people while I'm facing this joint. And back then it was hard because you didn't have solid three-way calling and all that. You could forward your phone a little bit, but the phone I had to try to finagle when no people call that it come through my phone and try to answer it or whatever. I was playing with my freedom with the whole thing or whatever, but I was young and dumb. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is.
So thank God that man you still here, bro. You ain't have a life sentence.
Listen,
you're not paralyzed, anything
God.
like that. You have your health. Fortunately,
I don't know what people's spirituality is. You know what I'm saying? I got knowledge itself, but I know it's deeper than that. And I believe that the higher power definitely made sure that I was around. Thus my testimony. Thus the reason why I talk to people the way that I do and try to, give back.
All right, so that's a good segue. What I wanted to talk about. You know me. You familiar with me from YouTube?
Yeah, facts.
Been on YouTube for probably about 3 years now, and I try to stay away from anything that has to do with anything negative. So I was talking about gang activity at one point, but never glorifying it.
Facts.
But today, I would like to harp on because I remember you shared something with me. And you told me that that you were a single dad raising your kids, and I thought that was
raising three of my 7. Yeah.
Right. So when you said that, I was like, you know what? I want to talk about that because I'm not really trying to give you your flowers because you're doing what I'm
supposed to do. What I'm supposed to do. Yeah.
Right. So, but it's commendable, and I think that not like praise, but I think that it should be acknowledged that there's some men out here that are raising their children. We don't need to give them flowers, but we need to acknowledge them that they are out here. How's it been for you? Let's talk about how old are your children and what's it like for you dating? Are you single? Do you date? Let's get into that type of stuff. Is it a challenge?
Well, I'll say this, right? My oldest daughter who's with me is 19 now. My other daughter is 17, about to be 18 in October. My son just turned 16, but I had them since 2012, 2013, some off of there. When I got custody or whatever. So I had my girls when we went through their periods the first time and the whole 9 or whatever.
Oh, okay. And, so you had to be the one supporting them during that. They just becoming young ladies.
Yeah. And at the time I was with somebody, I was married, and she tried to help out and everything, but it was a big transition because one, it came off a season with their mom, and see, we in a good place. So I'm gonna try to be light with it, but they came from a neglectful situation or whatever the case may be, and she thought because of my background, because of my history, that I wouldn't be able to get custody of them. But again, God saw different, and I never once wavered or let my past be a stumbling block to hold me back from getting my kids or whatever the case may be. So when I got custody of them, I had to not deprogram, but go through a period of transition, because to them, she had told them that I was like a deadbeat dad, that I wasn't around for 2 years because I didn't want to be around. When the reality was, at the time, she was moving from house to house, And every time I found out where they was at, they had just either got kicked out or moved out, or whatever the case may be. So I was on my shit, trying to find them or whatever. But when I finally got them, I had to go through that mental refreshing period. I won't say reprogram, refreshing, by showing them what it really was, re-showing them his memories that were suppressed because of what they were going through, things they forgot that had happened, times that I was there, even after me and that ex had divorced and everything else. And then, they start seeing it. And then as they start seeing it and recollecting through photographs and pictures and stuff like that, and seeing how mom at the time was moving, they started seeing a different picture. And I just showed them, what a solidified dad should do, or whatever the case may be.
Yo, it's important you say that. And because I have 5, but my 3 youngest are close to yours. So I have a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 50-year-old, 2 girls and 1 young man.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges I had when I separated from their mom was to not talk bad about their mom, right?
Yeah.
And I would hope that she would do the same. And one of the disciplines I had to practice is, to keep my composure, because eventually the children are going to be able to decipher for themselves of who was who and what part each parent played in the separation.
That's a fact.
But that's a discipline, and it takes time.
It's hard. It's hard.
And to figure it out. And
it's
my
hard.
mother gave me the best advice. She said, son, whatever she do not match what she do and go back and forth with children. Let your kids get older, and they're going to be able to decipher of who was doing what in the relationship. So I said, you know what? That's probably the best advice I got, and I stayed true to that. I never matched her aggression with aggression. I never, had senseless arguments. I just never did that. If it's concerning the kids, then we talking. Anything outside of the children, there's really nothing to talk about.
And that too has been was a process, because I had the constant barrages coming from her to them, trying to keep them in a mindset, because for the longest while they thought they were going back to her. So I'm going to get y'all back. I'm gonna have y'all back by such and such and such. But she wasn't changing nothing in her lifestyle or the dudes she was dealing with, or whatever the case may be. So that was causing monkey wrenches and issues. And at the time, on the level that they were, I would have to talk to them on their level, to a certain extent, but still try to keep it as cordial and above board as possible. Yeah. And as they got older, I could talk more real and give it to them like what you call it. But by this time, they had already been able to witness, and I'm looking at the other screen, so I apologize if it not look like I'm paying attention.
Don't worry.
They were able to see certain things for themselves to the point where when a custody hearing came around, my girls were the first ones to say, I'm not going back. I don't want to go back. And I said, babies, y'all gonna have to tell your mother that, because I don't want to tell her that. And it looked like it's coming from me. Like I persuaded them, because, that wasn't what went on, because I always gave them the opportunity to say, I want to do this. I want to do that, with whatever the best well-being of it all being the paramount thing on it, or whatever the case may be. But we're in a lot better space now. But at the same time, I always taught my kids to love on your family members where they are. Some people you love here, and some people you got to love over here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I said, even with your mother, I said, you all are experiencing certain things and seeing certain things for yourself. That's your mother. You still have to love her, but at the same time, you have to love her where she is and understand that, be prayerful and mindful of, the possibilities, but also realistic in what it is now, so that you're not let down, as much as possible.
Realistically, that's one of the challenges too. Like, it seems like family members and spouses and siblings, we love with conditions, and it's hard to love unconditionally.
Unconditionally, yeah.
I think that's closest to God you can get. People might say they love unconditionally, but I don't think humans can love unconditionally. You might love certain people, or your son, you might love your daughter, But sometimes it's conditions, man. Sometimes people love with conditions on them. Like if you do the right thing, then I love you. If you're not doing the right thing, I'm not feeling you right now. So,
but see that's the difference, right? Like I love all my kids unconditionally, but that don't mean I'm gonna love everything that they do and or condone everything that they do.
right.
That's the difference. You might not like certain attributes or characteristics of your children, but you love them to death, and you want to see the best for them, or whatever the case may be. So, you know, I operate accordingly. I'm gonna love them through whatever. I'm gonna make sure they're good through whatever, unless they, just do something hella drastic to step outside of my covering or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, like back talk and certain other things. Of course, I'm not gonna like that. I'm not gonna deal with that. It's a respect thing. But at the same time, I show my kids enough to let them know that Daddy, through your trials and tribulations, through your stumbles and falls, Daddy gonna be here for you. Just don't lie to me. Don't BS me. Even if you think I'm gonna be mad, come talk to me. The outcome will be a little bit better than if I found you lying or you in my face trying to play me stupid.
So if you being that you have sons and daughters,
mm-hmm.
What's some of the information or what's some of the advice you give your son as he's going through his trials of becoming a man while he's living in the inner city?
Let me be transparent too. Like growing up, like I said, I had my uncles all that, but I ain't really had no dad around. So when I first had my oldest son and etc., I stumbled and I failed with that. Because I didn't know how to be a father, but I learned because I was still in the streets, chasing music dreams at the same time, and then me and his mother falling out some other things. But I learned through trial and error, whatever the case may be. But even to this day, I give him good advice as my oldest son, and my son that's in the house with me. I tell him, I talk to him straight, because the streets ain't gonna shelter him. The streets ain't gonna take no breaks on him. I tell him what's out there. I talk to them about how to maintain and carry themselves, how to research and learn laws, statutes, educate yourself. Don't be afraid to go outside the box to learn something, and to also carry yourself as a solid young man and demand respect. Somebody ain't got to like you, but they need to respect you.
So what about? Let me ask you this question about basically what the youth are preaching now. This snitching thing, this G code thing, just being dedicated and loyal to your homies. How do you teach them to avoid anything like that? Do you give him any information about snitching? What is he consider? What side is he taking? Like, things like that. Because what I try to do in New York with the youth is I try to do reenactments of scenarios that they might be put in. And with so much information being filtered to the youth about snitching and all that, I think this kind of bad. Like, I really do. Because if you grown up as a civilian, and you grown up as a kid and a child, you shouldn't have to have information instilled in your brain about some street code stuff. Like you're a rat, you're a snitch. I'm not raising my kid like that. You know what I'm saying? My kid is not a gangster. My kid is not none of that. My kid is a geeky nerd. He loves video games. He loves puzzles. He loves wearing Crocs. He's not into Jordans. He's a nerd. So I'm not going to be instilling him, if you rat on somebody, because he's not in that lifestyle to be even thinking about it.
Thinking about it like that.
You know what I'm saying? So how do you address that when you're dealing with your son?
For me, it's a rock and a hard place. I ain't gonna lie, because I came up in the era where there was no solid distinguishment between civilian and people in the streets. You were taught not to tattletale first in the house growing up. Now, you don't tell on your brothers, or you don't tattletale on your cousins. You don't.
That's true. We learned that from our parents early.
Yeah, and see, that transitioned off into the street life or whatever the case may be. Now, I do remember that people that were civilians were treated a little bit different when it came to certain things, but they got retribution too at a time for telling or putting the call on the police or whatever the case may be in certain instances. But now, like I said, my oldest son is a lot more like how I used to be or whatever, and he's a lot better now, because he got his own kids or whatever. But my son that's with me and my youngest son, they not in all that foolishness, and I don't ingrain that in them. I just ingrain them in them how to be upstanding young men, to grow into men, and to live a life and lifestyle that won't call upon you to be put in those positions to where you feel like you got to hold weight or hold water for somebody in their foolishness. One, but two, to mind your business on one hand, but at the same time be stand up when it's time to be stand up. Like if somebody being violated or something like that, you know, as men we got to step in, protect our women, protect our sisters.
Right.
I tell my son that here all the time. You got sisters. You don't want no man putting it or no boy putting his hands on your sisters. You don't want certain things to take place. And if daddy ain't around and you are around, you have to, you know what I'm saying, protect your sisters or whatever the case may be. But it's a rock and a hard place because I have told my kids not to overly involve themselves or to give up too much information when it comes to them people, but to be respectful, cordial, and go about your business because, you know, with everything coming down where they shooting us and a lot of other things, I don't want it to be a situation where they are, where my sons are being too aggressive, but at the same time being too passive. Let them know that you know your rights so that you're going to have to handle me differently, but not do it in a point where you overly belligerent to where they're going to lock you up for disorderly or whatever the case may be. But if
that's sad. That's kind of sad that we have to
have them talk.
Teach our young sons a different, like we got to give them DMV code, like driving while black type of situation. Just because you're a black young man and you're driving, it's different circumstances for you when you get pulled over. Like police pull us over, it's immediate alert. Like you're like we're a threat to them just for being black. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's sad. Like, so why are you being a police officer if you feel uneasy about black people?
Because they're
killing us while we're unarmed. There's more serial killers that are white than are black in the United States.
Exactly.
So I don't understand.
And they recruited more police officers from outside the jurisdictions or the neighborhoods that they patrolling or so-called working in. Whereas when I was younger, I always tell people the crack era to me was worse than now, as far as violence and everything else. And the police weren't shooting people to that extent. Yeah, they what you call it, and the jump out squad in DC, we knew if we ran, they caught us, they was whooping us, but they wasn't trying to take the life out of us. They like knotted us up or something, but they wasn't trying to take the life.
It was more dangerous back then,
huh?
It was way more dangerous in the street back then.
That's what I'm telling people now. Yeah, the guns is different now, but it was a lot more gunplay, lot more going on for the police.
It was a lot of gunplay,
a lot. And so I'm like the reverse kind of it, how they're shooting more people now as opposed to then is crazy. But I get it because you got a lot of people that come from a lot of areas. One, either they light on black interaction, or two, their peoples are really against black interaction. So they come to the job with that, or they were picked on, and they wanna they come in there like gun holder, really get into action, and they're not being trained. They're not being trained. Like before, it used to be shoot to wound, so you could apprehend. Now they're being taught to shoot to kill.
Right.
Hit center mass or or whatever the case may be, and that's it. And the ugly part about it is this, right? Because I tell my sons to operate a certain way, not necessarily so they look less than, but for my sanity. Because if something happened to my kids, I'm gonna make the news. And unfortunately, I hate to say that, but that's where I'm at on that. And I'm just like, look out for you and look out for me. Help me help you and help you help me. Because I'm like, I'm a ride for my kids to no end. But at the same time, when I used to get pulled over, I used to buck. Because I used to have a Chevy Impala police package joint, silver with metallic flakes on it with candy paint on it, right? I used to get pulled over all the time out Maryland, DC, and the whole nine for some garbage, right? One excuse or another. One officer gonna tell me your license plate light is out. And I said, no, it's not. I said, I'm about to get out and go see. No, you sit right there. I said, okay, that's how I know you bullshitting. What are we doing? You gonna give me a ticket or gonna let me go? Now, one officer pulled me over and said, listen, I just wanted to pull you over to check you out. And I looked at him. I said, even though you still dead wrong, I respect it because at least you was honest. least you was honest, because that's what they always doing anyway. But just don't. We men. At the end of the day, even though either I'm younger or same age as the officers, we men are the same day. Yeah, you got a job to do. I'm trying to get to where I'm trying to get to, or do whatever I'm trying to do. But we men at the end of the day, and you just because you got that title, don't give you the authority to want to usurp my rights and my freedom. And I'm just like, no. And I let them know. I know the rights and all that. And they hate it.
All right, Coach. So this is a segue into my next question. Like,
talk to me.
So, what are you doing now? Let's talk about what you're doing currently, because, like, I'm doing solitary confinement, and I'm doing prison reform right now, advocating. Are you doing anything in your community now that you want to let the audience know? Let them know where to find your work or what you're doing.
I'm not a part of an advocacy group per se, but I talk to youth. I get pulled in at different times to come talk to the youth at schools, just to tell them my story and my outlook on everything that's going on. My thing is this. I've known I had a calling on my life for a lot of years, even when I was in the street. Just how certain things and certain people's problems were brought to me randomly. But I've always ducked and dodged it. Now I'm about to be 50 in December. I'm not ducking no more. I want to talk.
Okay, welcome to the 50 Club, man.
You feel me?
We've been patiently waiting for you. At least you ain't go bald yet, bro. Look,
the hairline going back a little bit.
Oh, you got the do-rag on?
I still got hair back there. You know what I'm saying? But
word.
I give up myself to talk to people. Now, I got a couple businesses, so my time has been limited, but I'm dedicating more time for online interaction. I got a YouTube channel, Instagram. A lot of people starting to gravitate towards me one way or the other, and I just want to use my platforms for positive change and motivation and inspiration. Not from a I'm better than you standpoint, but just dropping gems and jewels from where I've been, how I made it through, my outlook on life now. And for those that is meant to receive it, will receive it. And that's what I'm on, with a strong emphasis on saving our youth. Strong emphasis. And our community, because our community needs a heavy rebuild.
Right. So I'll commend you on that, and I want to promote what I'm doing right now. I'm doing prison reform right now.
Yeah.
I'm doing advocacy for people that's in solitary confinement. We need to end solitary confinement because it's cruel and inhumane.
Yeah,
I had worked in Albany and got solitary confinement eradicated in New York State prisons.
Shout out to you.
Now we're working on Rikers Island, which is a jail, not considered a prison. So they still are locking adults in their cells in Rikers Island. So I have a petition started, and I'm taking it state to state. I primarily want to hit the down south states because those Commonwealth states, they still have a little bit of slave doctrine in their prison system. As far as the 14th Amendment, I believe, is the 13th, where you have a right to, when somebody is in prison, you have a right to enslave them. Then I think it's cruel and inhumane. So I'm trying to touch those Commonwealth states in the down south region. So the petition will be on my social media. You can go to my Instagram and see the petition, or you can follow me on YouTube and you can subscribe. You can see my videos I posted of going to Albany and lobbying to Congress and legislators to get these bills passed about solitary confinement. And so I would like support on that.
I got you.
If anybody want to sign the petition, you have to hit me in the DM, and I can send petitions over to your state, and we can start petitioning to free people that are in the states locked in solitary confinement in your state. Thank you.
And even though I was blessed and by the skin of my teeth was allowed to forego a long prison sentence, I have a lot of homies, a lot of people that I know that have not been so lucky or so blessed, and I stand in solidarity with you on that. I believe that the prison system has foregone the rehabilitation side of it and have been on just straight punishment and or prison labor, which is another legal term for slavery when it comes to the products that are made, sold through the prison industry, both the private and public sector. But I stand in solidarity with you on that, And if by any chance or any way that I can be of help, you can count me in on that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so I thank you, Big Phil, for tuning in. We're gonna be doing this weekly segment.
That's
we got
a
a
fact.
lot that we can cover. So you can look forward to checking in. This is gonna be a weekly thing we're gonna be doing. So y'all can look forward to seeing me and Big Phil speak.
That's a fact.
We're gonna cover a variety of different topics to entertain y'all. We have some content. We are truly content creators. So when you log on to us, you're going to get some informed information. It's going to be nurturing for your soul. It's going to be educational, and we're going to entertain you at the same time. Trust us. We have a wealth of content. This is
content
only the
experience.
beginning. Y'all going to be pleasantly surprised. Yo, salute Big Phil, man.
Salute Stakkstone.
I give you your flowers and I honor you, bro.
Likewise, my brother. I appreciate you.
Brooklyn to DC, NYC to DC.
You hear me? And all parts in between. You hear me?
Salute, bro. One.
Salute. I appreciate you.
In this live. I appreciate you. Okay.